Groves. Here. Fitzpatrick.
Here.
Randall.
Here.
Walker.
Here.
Zerfing.
Here.
Mayor Cramlin.
Here. Additions or amendments to the agenda?
There are no changes, Your Honor.
Okay, adoption of the consent agenda, approval of October 8th, 2018 minutes, ratification of bills, the amount of $72,810.04.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. All in favor, say aye.
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 Ooh.
Opposed? Okay, public hearing.
We have none.
Action, appointment to committees.
We have none.
Nothing on there. Okay, approved CH2M contract amendment for the 2018-2019 fiscal year.
It seems a little late to be doing this, but they haven't given us the increase that they normally give us in April or May, because they were bought by Jacobs Engineering. And so when they work through their new corporate systems, they've come in with a 3.6% increase. And it's still under what we had put in the budget way back in April. So I recommend approval. The new operator has done very, very well for us in making more efficient use of our, or creating greater total suspended solids in the effluent that we ship to Hood River. So it's more efficient for us. Basically, I think this young man that's running the wastewater treatment plant now is going to be able to keep us running until we get our wastewater improvements done and improved. When we get to 30% engineering, we're going to bring the operator and their engineers in to look at our plans to make sure that the operators understand what we're trying to do and maybe have some suggestions, maybe how to do it better. So we need to work or keep this group. We do have a contract with them until that it goes through 2022. So this is just the increase for the year.
So you're basically saying the man's saving us is 3.5% anyway.
No, he's not saving us that much, but what he's doing is preventing us from having to spend a lot of money on maintenance and planned improvements, replacements ahead of when we're going to be scrapping most of it anyway. We don't really want to spend $4,000 or $5,000 now and turn around and replace whatever the equipment is that we're putting in. So, yeah, I think he's worth his salt at the moment.
Do I hear a motion?
I move we approve the CH2M contract increase of 3.5%.
3.6.
0.6, okay.
You good with that? Okay, it's been moved and second.
I've got one question.
To approve the proposed 3.6 CH2M Operation Waste Management Treatment Plan.
Yep. Is that new equipment line item of $4,000 in addition to the 3.6% increase, or they just move stuff?
No, we always budget $4,000. They have $4,000 that they can do maintenance with every year.
Okay, so that's something that's in there all the time.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's not new.
Okay.
Because our contract says we'll pay them for the contractor, and we set aside $4,000 in our budget to do maintenance.
Okay. Made it sound like it was something new.
No.
Other questions here? Bruce, do you have any questions?
No questions, a comment. I mean, it's a big raise, seems like, for cost of living, but we got to keep that thing rolling. So I'm in favor of it.
What was the cost of living?
About 2.8. I think that's what I remember seeing this morning, LGBI.
Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, that carries. Interested citizens.
That'd be me.
That'd be you, Stefan. Let us know who we have here.
Yes, my name is Shane Wood, and I live here in town. And I've noticed over the weekends, and especially this last summer, a large increase of food trucks and temporary vendors coming into town. And I'd like the council to consider, I know y'all are talking about what may or may not be done there. I'd like you to consider what it does to the stationary businesses, the ones that not only does the town support, but that also support the town. In that there is a small window of tourist opportunity here, and it's a fragile economy as it is. And if we allow those to start coming in with all the food trucks and vendors and that, what it does is they take the gravy right off the top for the weekends or whatever, and then they go home, and none of them are here through the winter. None of them are here supporting the community every day of the week. Where your stationary businesses are paying taxes all year long, every year, their expenses go on, you know, and it really is damaging unless we want to live in a community where we don't have any services because nobody can afford to compete with that, you know. At any rate, and I wanted to mention that for your consideration.
Well, what's your solution?
Well, I would suggest that you not allow that. I've seen where other towns have allowed it and it's absolutely devastated the local businesses where they're not in existence anymore. I drove a long haul truck for 4 years, so I'm not an economic whiz. But when you're used to going into a place and all of a sudden the businesses can't do it, they're not there anymore. And so many of the places that we drove trucks into where you could get food and that, you can no longer get it because of this kind of thing. So,
Thank you.
thank you.
Is there anybody else who wanted to? Yeah.
Kathy Tittle, longtime resident, and I have one question. Has anyone here on council or in the audience or anybody had their water randomly sampled by the city?
My mom did, I think.
Okay, well, did you too, Bobby?
I think my mom had hers.
Okay, and you, Richard, and you did? Okay. Anybody else? Well, we haven't. I asked Gordon how old are older houses that are testing copper and water, and he said 1982 and older. My house is built in 1975, and my whole neighborhood. And I have a rental that has several kids in it and a baby, and I'm concerned that the issue wasn't raised about how important it is that water be found in the water. And not everybody, I understand it's the homeowner's responsibility to test for, but I had no idea. I didn't know the seriousness of it. So I ordered a water quality test kit. I just got it today. I haven't used it yet. It was $33.99 and $5.99 for shipping and handling, and it tests. There's 2 tests each for chloride, copper, free chlorine, hydrogen sulfide, iron, nitrate, nitrite, total alkalinity, total chlorine, total hardness, sulfate, pH, and 1 test each for lead, bacteria, and pesticides. What I'm going to do is offer to buy as many test kits as residents want. Of course, they'll have to pay for the cost, and I can get a bulk price. But I think that it would be prudent for everybody to test their own water. And I understand that it's the landlords or homeowners' problem to take care of the piping and stuff inside the house. But I would urge everybody to have their water tested. Did you have a question?
Yeah, they tested mine. My house was also built in 1975.
Okay.
And I think they were sampling the houses that had copper in them. And especially houses like mine where you're at the end of the line with the copper in it.
Okay. At the end of the line where? Of the water?
Where the water supplied. It seemed to be the way. Is that what they were testing?
Yes, basically, it's a representative sample. It's set out in statute on the process and procedure to use and where to test and how.
And that was to see if they were going to add it to the ash to the entire system. So if they add it to the entire system, they are fixing everybody's house and not just.
I would rather it just be fixed right and not have to drink whatever that is, the potash. But anyway, my concern was everybody having their water tested, not just some of the people on council and I don't know whoever else. Can I find out who else's water was sample tested?
Yes.
Randomly
Yes.
tested? Okay, thank you. And if anybody wants to get a hold of me, I'll order a water testing kit and they can test all that stuff at cost, whatever it is. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kathy.
Anybody else? Okay. So we're at reports and presentation, city committees.
We have none?
Okay, Hood River County Sheriff, Matt English.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, thanks for giving me some time this evening. I just wanted to kind of update you on what's going on with our office and then the contract that the city has with us for services. And so as you know, or may not know, over the last 2 years, since about August of 2016, our staffing levels have been in a constant flux. So I think I just made my 9th job offer a few weeks ago for a patrol position. So that's the folks that drive around in the neighborhoods in the county. And so we have basically 12 full-time patrol folks. So we have 9 new bodies. So we have a lot of new people. So when we've had those staffing issues, we've cut 24-hour coverage in the county 2 times. But the one thing that we have always maintained is the staffing for the position that you pay for. And I made that a priority with my sergeants most recently this summer and said we had the deputy that was assigned down here left for another job. And I said, the city of Cascade Locks pays for a position, so we will staff that, and we staff that at the expense of Valley Patrol and cut 24-hour coverage to ensure that the position was covered down here. So I have just had one guy come off of training, and so he's now solo as of about 2 weeks ago. And then this extended job offer, that deputy should probably start in mid-November. So we're at a point right now where we're covering all the shifts down here. We have a deputy assigned, but we don't have a permanent deputy yet. So theoretically, the person that I just offered the job to would be the new Cascade Locks deputy. But during kind of this state of flux, it got me thinking, and we had some discussion in our organization. And so what has historically happened with the Cascade Locks position is it is always the newest person gets assigned to Cascade Locks. I have some issues with that because from number one, officer safety standpoint, number two, some of the service, because we've got somebody basically learning. They just are out of training and then get assigned to a position where they're essentially by themselves, because they're the lone deputy here that's at least assigned to this contract. So we were looking at solutions, but before I made any moves, it's very important to me that I come to you folks, and I would like to have your input, because it's really important to me, and it's your position. So what the other option I'm looking at is that we put the Cascade Locks position on our rotation. So what that would mean is that all of the deputies would have the ability to bid for the shift, because the deputies do an annual shift bid, and they know a year in advance what they're working for the entire next year. So they would essentially bid for the Cascade Locks position. The downside is that you don't have that consistent deputy, like a single deputy. They would rotate potentially every 3 months. That's when our deputies rotate. They do a shift for 3 months and then they rotate out. Somebody could bid the Cascade Locks shift for multiple quarters, but there would be some rotation. The positive to that is you're going to get a rotation of deputies that are probably more experienced. You're also going to get more knowledge built up within our patrol division of Cascade Locks, which is an important part of the county and our patrol area. So we'll have more well-rounded deputies that have a better understanding of the unique issues that may be happening in this community. But before we did that, and I'll be honest, I mean, that's kind of the way that I am leaning. I'd like to maybe try that. But if there are strong objections to that, then we'll just go the old route, and I can assign somebody here for the next couple of years. And again, it's really how the council and you feel, Mr. Mayor, about this, and I just want to do what's right for your community.
So what do you think?
Well,
Okay,
it
Bob?
sounds like any improvement or familiarity is much offset by people with some experience. And I can imagine what it'd be like just fresh out of the academy, put anywhere. It doesn't matter if it's Portland or Cascade Locks. You're still learning. And I think there's some disadvantages to that for both parties. So I'm in favor of the rotation.
Carl?
We had times when the deputy that had Cascade Locks lived in Cascade Locks. There was a lot of advantage to that, because they even on their off hours, they were good enough to us to have their cars in their driveway and respond. But if you don't have anybody living here, then there's no advantage in having one deputy assigned. I think that, like Bob says, there'd be more advantage to having a rotation with different experiences.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have any objections to that plan either. Especially with the turnover in staffing, we're not even really getting an opportunity for one person to get embedded in the community. So we might as well try it this way.
Yeah, since July, when the deputy left, it was early July. I've assigned 2 different deputies down here, and so the second deputy just started his rotation down here October 1st, and he will run on that until December 31st. And then if we go this route, then we'll have more consistent staffing. We'll know, and we'll be able to, if there's a question or anything, we can tell you who's going to be here. But we'll know. They generally do their shift bids in October, November sometime, so that would be worked out rather quickly. The only other issue that I see outstanding is the financial piece of it, because what you have done typically is you're paying for a person, and I have a solution for this, but One of the, and I'll have to get it approved by the county, but I don't think it's going to be an issue. But essentially, if you have 4 different deputies working down here, they're all getting paid different amounts because they have different levels of seniority. But my proposal to the county is going to be is that we bill the city of Cascade Locks for the new deputy that I hire at that rate. And then it's easier for budgeting, because essentially that's what the city's paying for, is a deputy position. And so it makes sense to me just to bill that new deputy that would be hired in November. And then as you moved forward with your budgeting, it's a lot easier to predict that, because it's a very smooth transition and step increases and things like that. So.
Do you have another question, Mike?
I was just curious, are there young men and women that grow up in the area? Do you have any of those?
That are
any interest?
That are local?
Yeah.
Local to Cascade Locks or the county?
The county.
Yes, but law enforcement hiring has been really tough. And frankly, there's a lot of professions now where it's really, really difficult to get staffing, and law enforcement hasn't been immune to that. And so this is a statewide problem. My fellow sheriffs around the state and I talk about this frequently. And so there's just less people interested. We had our lowest number of applications ever on this last round of hiring. And so we're trying to find some out-of-the-box ways to recruit and get people more interested. We have different programs and things for people that are interested, but it's just, even our volunteer reserves, we have been advertising for 2 or 3 years constantly, and have very few people that are interested, and so those numbers are down. So to kind of, that's a long answer to your question, but yes, we do have, we definitely have local people. I like to hire local if we have viable candidates. There was a time over the last couple of years where we got very few local applicants, and so we have a lot of people out of area. I think I have 4 or 5 deputies now that live in the Dalles. I have one that moved over to White Salmon. That's one of the biggest issues for us in recruiting. Our pay right now is about 22% below market, and the cost of living here, as you know, has skyrocketed. And so, in order for deputies to buy a house or be able to live in this county, they have to have multiple incomes generally, and some of our deputies are single, and some of them don't have that, so they're forced to other communities. Some of the people that I've hired were natives to the Dalles, and they just stayed there. So it's been a challenge. It's been a real challenge, but we do have locals, and like I said, I really like to hire local people, and I like to hire veterans.
Bruce, you got a question?
Not at this time, Your Honor, but thank you for asking.
So how is your staff taking that? I mean, are they fine?
Yeah, I mean,
Are they fine with rotating through down here?
Yeah, well, yes and no. It doesn't really, we haven't taken it to the line staff, but we've talked about it with the sergeants. We've talked about it informally, but we'll present it to them. But at the end of the day, it's kind of what I decide to do.
But it doesn't help us if somebody really doesn't want to.
Absolutely. But, you know, there's some advantage to the shift, because the shift in Cascade Locks doesn't get around. If most of our other shifts, we're staffed so thinly that if somebody is sick or takes a day off, then somebody's shift gets moved around to cover. And so this shift is very consistent. You know what you're working, you know the times you're working, and the only time that we've really ever changed it is if there's some event, and it'll be for like a shift or 2. And then if the deputy requests it, or if there's a good reason for it, sometimes we just switch it up because people get used to the shift and they know what they're working. So,
do you think, I'm just kind of curious, maybe do most of the officers not like working in Cascade Locks, I mean, it seems like they kind of run off after they're here for a while. Is that has anything to do with us?
No, I think it's challenging because you're isolated. I think because generally what happens is there's 2 or 3 people that are working in the valley because there's a fairly heavy call volume up there, and then the deputy that's in Cascade Locks is more isolated, 20 miles from where the other ones are. And so, and generally like if we're low staff, like if we only have 1 or 2 deputies working, which is real common, then they'll stay more centralized, like in the Mid Valley or somewhere they can respond the same, time to Parkdale as they can to Cascade Locks. And so I don't think that people necessarily shy away from it. I think that it's, you have deputies that have done rotations here, and many of our deputies that still work for us started in Cascade Locks, including the undersheriff. And so there are a lot of advantages to it, and I think that the people that have been assigned here historically got a lot of value out of it. But just kind of looking from, a little bigger picture at, well, if we could put more experienced people down here and rotate that through, then we're probably building even stronger patrol division so that everybody could rotate through here, at some point, given their choice. So.
The only thing I request is you don't announce when you're coming. But we had a deputy in a public meeting said, this is when I'm going to work. And so everybody knew when they were going to be in town and when they weren't going to be in town. So just a request.
Yeah. Well, and frankly, though, people figure it out. It's been pretty consistent. Yeah. Yeah.
You had a question?
Yes, I've been hearing about several car prowls lately and vandalism. I was wondering if you have any like neighborhood watch programs or anything that you could have us look at.
We don't have like formal neighborhood watch programs, but we are happy to come down and neighbors and talk about solutions to look for. We've seen over the years in different parts of the county, sometimes there'll be a rash of like burglaries to houses and things like that. And so we will certainly work with the community that's affected and talk to homeowners about things they can do to make their houses safer, from cutting back shrubs around your house to leave lights on, to letting, et cetera. And so we're happy to do that. We would certainly send a deputy or 2 down to meet with neighbors. That's something that we pride ourselves on as work community, so certainly we can do that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So, are we good with that, going back to the
Can we talk about Norcor?
Sure.
Are there, and forgive me, I don't know exactly what the issues were, but it just seemed like a couple months ago we were hearing a lot about Norcor and the immigration, ICE folks, and can you fill us in on what's going on with Norcor? There was a funding issue.
Yes, there's still, the funding for Norcor's still an issue to a point every budget season, because it's costly to run any jail because you're essentially running a small city and you've got to have food, medical, et cetera. So the costs go up, and what some of the issues have been is when Norcor first opened, counties were hardly paying anything because of the amount of contracts that Norcor had, and the costs weren't as high 20 years ago before it opened. And so over the years, some of those contracts went away, particularly federal contracts, got smaller. We had contracts with, at one point, Jackson County, Oregon, which is Medford. They had 50 prisoners in Norcor. And so that revenue is used to offset the subsidies that the counties pay. And so when those contracts went away, then the counties were asked to pay more money. And so that's kind of where some of these funding issues came from. The ICE thing that has been going, there's one current lawsuit open about basically it's disputing Norcor's ability to have a contract with ICE, and that's in violation of Oregon law is the contention. And so that's been working its way through the court system for the last several months. But Norcor does have a contract with ICE, with the U.S. Marshal Service, and then with Benton County, which is Corvallis. We have about 35 prisoners of Sheriff Jackson's from Benton County. And so that revenue offsets then what the taxpayers essentially pay for Norcor. Most recently, the current administrator, Brian Brandenburg, has announced that he is going to retire and return to Alaska, where he came from. And so the Norcor board went out for a new administrator. There weren't very many candidates, and then the candidate that they ultimately offered the job to declined that position. And so they were left without any options. And so the sheriffs and juvenile directors went to the board and said, listen, particularly the sheriffs, one of our statutory responsibilities is to run jails. And we essentially did that already, just a little more hands-off because we had an administrator. But ultimately, every prisoner from Hood River County that's arrested in Hood River County, doesn't matter what agency arrested them, is my responsibility and my prisoner. And same with my other 3 Norcor sheriffs. And so essentially what we're going to do is the sheriffs are going to run the adult side. We have a point sheriff that will be the direct contact for staff. We've promoted someone within to be the jail commander. And the jail commander position is something that is mirrored across the state and county jails. And so that's really not a stretch. It's not reinventing the wheel. It's just a little bit different. The sheriffs still have a 4-member board that oversees the operations of the facility. And the same thing will happen on the juvenile side. Juvenile detention is not the responsibility of a sheriff. It's the responsibility of juvenile directors. And so they will manage that facility in the same manner. Norcor board will continue to exist as it has. And they're essentially in charge of the finances, and the sheriffs will run the adult jail, and juvenile directors will run juvenile facility.
So a question on that.
Yeah.
So you got a jail that has so many beds in it. Do you get to it, and obviously you're putting people from other counties in those beds. Do you get to a point where the hotel's full and you can't get your people into it? Now you got to pay to have somebody go somewhere else?
They don't go somewhere else, but we do get to a point of forced release. And we have had to do that. We were overcrowding in the last few weeks, and so we've forced released some people. Generally, though, the people that are being released are people that are sentenced, and they're being released a couple days early, just to make room. And so essentially the 4 counties have 100 beds, first come, first serve. So if we have 70 people in there, then it leaves 30 beds, so be it. The sheriffs have agreed that that's how we should operate for the safety of the region. And then the contract beds take up about another 65. So we run about 165-ish, and we're staffed for that. If we were to add more people, we look at other contracts too to produce revenue. We'd have to add staff to do that. So yeah, we get to that point.
So you're always looking to keep it fairly full, whether it's with your people or if you got a gap in it, you're going to say, hey, we got a couple of beds up here, Benton County or whatever.
Basically,
you have somebody you want to send our way.
Right. Basically, the contract beds don't encroach on the 100 beds that the counties pay for. So we could add more contract beds. That facility can hold 212 people. We're at about 165 just because of the staffing and then the size of the contracts. Benton County has been really good about ensuring that we have 35 prisoners. And again, it comes down to budgets and being able to budget that and know how much revenue you're going to have. But if there's other revenue opportunities out there, then Norcor is always looking at those because it helps offset again what the subsidies are from the counties. and ultimately from the taxpayers.
So where are we on this? We're good with, letting it go back and take a look at rotation?
I like the
Yeah.
idea of the rotation.
Good with that? You good with that, Bruce?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
All right, appreciate your time, thank you.
Thank you very
so
much.
You bet.
for keeping us informed.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Which other county
Thanks,
offices we can have?
And the administrator's report.
Thank you. If you remember in our goal sessions, one of the things we wanted to do was update or upgrade our broadcast capability. While we are broadcasting now on Channel 23, we are also broadcasting on YouTube. So everybody in town just saw that. If you just go to City of Cascade Locks live stream, you can see the council meeting in progress. You can also go back and watch it anytime. They keep it in their archives, and it doesn't cost us anything because we're a government. So there you go.
Yay.
Okay, good job.
I love getting things checked off our
Tune
list.
There we go. Yeah, Bruce, you can watch?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, yeah, good. Except there's a little delay as with broadcasts, so.
Oh, okay.
Well,
You
we've
would
got
hear.
his delay already.
Yeah. Secondly, we'd like to thank Nancy Renault and her crew for a successful firefighter EMT appreciation dinner on the 15th. We'd also like to thank Chief Jessica Bennett for her informative presentation on the state of the EMS department. Next Monday night, there is a Friends of the Museum Board Town Hall meeting at the Pavilion at 7 o'clock. All are invited to come and see what they're looking at to do with the museum and the pony, to see what's in the future. For those of you who may not have seen the news, we did receive a small Travel Oregon Opportunity Grant, $20,000. That gives us $295,000 out of the $300,000 budget for the gorge hubs. We're going to go out to bid, see if we can't squeeze that $5,000 out. We'll bid in the winter and hopefully have it all completed by the start of tourist season next year. That's the redo of the parking lot and the Overlook Park, installation of bathrooms, or a bathroom and a shower facility so PCT hikers can come and take a shower before they go into our businesses. In case I don't know which way you came to City Hall tonight, but Benson and Watts streets have been paved. Thanks to the favorable weather, we're almost done with that project. They should be striping tomorrow and finishing up the sidewalk tomorrow and putting in the stop signs that we're putting on the end of Watts at both corners. So that project's gone very well. We do have one question on runoff that the engineer will come and try to address when he gets back off of his hunting trip. Election day is November the 6th. The City Hall office will be open until 8 p.m. to receive ballots. The ballots are then picked up by the county elections office, transported to the river, and counted. Preliminary results are usually posted by 10 p.m. on the county website under the elections tab. You can see a results tab there. Reminder that the first meeting in November is Veterans Day, and at our last council meeting, we canceled that meeting. This last week, I attended the Oregon Municipal Electric Utilities Association annual meeting. I was able to talk to our account executives and to Elliot Mainzer, who is the director of BPA. They all assured me that there is adequate power to cover our rising needs. So the question we had was if we're going out and getting another 10 megawatt of power, do they have it to sell to us? They currently have a daily surplus of about 500 megawatts. And they don't want to ship it to California because they don't make as much money shipping it to California as they do selling it to us. So they assured me that we will have adequate power to cover our needs. On Thursday, the Historic Columbia River Highway Advisory Committee will meet with ODOT Region 1. The trail that they're working on right now between Wyeth and Lindsay Creek should be open late next summer. They're planning the celebratory opening and they would like to include Cascade locks in that planning. So I'm going to go down and talk to them about what it is they're trying to do and how we can help, and what kind of things they would need to get from us. On Wednesday afternoon, I'll be meeting with managers of the other consumer-owned electric utilities and the Oregon Department of Energy. This is a quarterly meeting that I attend. It's a reminder to the Department of Energies that COUs are there and not to let the investor-owned utilities run roughshod over us. So it's a long day, but it's worthwhile. I'll give you an example. The Department of Energy is funded out of what they call an electronic supply assessment. Every electric utility pays a portion of their revenues to the Department of Energy to run the Department of Energy, and that's set by state statute. The problem has been that they have used some of that money for purposes that we don't believe is appropriate for the state agency to spend. And so we have been, in conjunction with the public utility districts and other consumer-owned utilities, watchdog on making sure that with the money that we give them, is spent according to the statute. There's currently a lawsuit from their expenditures in 2016 and 2017. We've held off on the expenditures for 2018, waiting for the 2016 and 2017 lawsuits, which have been combined, to be adjudicated, which will tell the Department of Energy what they can and can't do. So that's why I go to those meetings, is to make sure that our money is appropriately used. In addition to that, with my new responsibilities with the electric utility, trying to oversee something that I know nothing about, I've signed up for a 2-day electric utility systems operations class that's sponsored by the Northwest Public Power Association, which we belong to. That class will give me an overview of operations of a power utility, from purchasing through forecasting and power systems, from generation through distribution costs down to the meter on the home. So it's going to be a good 2 days of learning how to run an electric utility. And finally, like and share us on Facebook, City of Cascade Locks - local government page. Thank you.
Thank you. So Mayor and City Council comments. Bruce, you have any comments?
Just that the Benson and Watts improvements, that road's really nice. It'd be longer, but I like it.
Carl?
On this report, or everything in general?
Anything, Jim?
Oh, anything in general, okay.
Oh, everything, yeah.
That's where I messed up last time. I don't have anything this time.
Okay, thanks. Bobby?
I also wanted to thank people who did the paving. It looks really good. New houses. I went and checked out some of the building going on around there. I just want to remind people to vote. Doesn't matter who you vote for, just vote. Do your homework. Because if you don't vote, you've got nothing to complain about. And we'll see how it goes.
Deanna?
Well, since I missed the last meeting, I'll do my little gratitude thing right now. And I just wanted to say that I'm so grateful for having the opportunity to serve this community for 9 years now. It's been a really great experience, good and bad. Like Bobby said, vote. It's the most important right we have left as Americans, so please exercise it. And from the city administrator's report, it looks like we've got a whole lot going on right now, so thanks to staff, as always, for staying on top.
Richard?
Yeah, I just want to again thank the staff for all that they do. And I just want to use Benson and Watt Streets as an example of what the current government do in this community. It's not, the infrastructure is falling apart. There's more streets that need to be repaired. And as funds and times allow us, that is a pursuit of mine especially. So I just want to let people know that everything that we do is of value to every community member, just not one part of town or another part of town. Like people are getting envious of other people because they got to pay their bill for improvements. What is that about? We're all in this together. It has nothing to do with this part of town or that part of town, you know. And I just want to continue to ask people to come together so we can make this a better place for our kids in the future. That's all I have for now.
Linda?
I want to always thank the staff, and I want to say that this council has worked together to improve this community, and it's what we were voted to do. We're doing a good job, and I just want to basically thank the council. Nobody thanks the council. Somebody always has something to say, but we were voted to do a job. We've done that job. We've improved this city, and we continue to improve this city. So I want to thank us all.
Well, thanks, Linda.
You're welcome.
But she didn't.
Well, he's a part of it.
So I just from the EMS side, 'cause that's going to be always a difficulty for all small towns, and we took the step of well, it was started prior to us, but we continued the step of being able to fund the EMS, where the difficulty of having an all-volunteer fire department has continued to rise up there. We had the town hall out, the fire hall. Nancy Renault did a great job, and Jessica did a good job explaining some of the options that we could go with there. I would have wished we would have had more citizens there. We had a pretty good group of people there, but it was a group of people who always do come to that type of thing. I would have hoped more people who don't necessarily always come to that. And that's what we need, is people who don't necessarily always get involved in something. We need to get involved, because from the town's growing, and from the EMS side, if you want to, you drive by there and you see this great fire hall, but our problem is trying to have enough people that can come up, especially on the fire side, have enough people that can come up and manage a fire at a house. We're building, an example of the Shahala area. There's houses up there that are 3 stories. Our fire department's going to have a hard time with that type of thing. So people need to come. People need to keep asking those questions about that side of it, because I think the council has worked hard on a variety of things, and there's some things that we have control over, and we've done what we could on the things we have control over. We don't have control over somebody volunteering for something, and especially on the EMS side, we have no control over that other than to be able to ask and to be able to put on events at the fire hall, and hopefully people show up and see the people who are doing it, and what type of equipment, what type of building we have. So the city's done a lot of things to try to equip and have the things there, but from the volunteer side, we can't make you do it. And I'm just putting it out to our citizens that if you haven't been involved and you're here, you need to, if there's something you want to get involved in, the emergency services is where you need to come. They need help there.
So how would somebody in the town go about doing
Jessica
that?
Bennett.
Okay.
Jessica Bennett. You can come by City Hall and they can help you there too. But Jessica's the primary one.
Yeah,
That's the chief that you need to go to.
Can I say a little bit on that, Tom? I don't know
Yeah,
if I have my chance.
Sure.
Okay. I spent 30 years on the fire and ambulance. And I went through a lot of training and stuff and had to have a lot of training to keep it up. But this isn't necessarily necessary. I went on there, I was going to spend 5 years because I figured anybody that lives in a little town owes something to that little town. They need to commit to something. And I was going to go 5 years. I was going to put in my time just responding to fires. But then they kept blowing sirens. It was one at one time, two the other, and three the next for the other part of town for fire. And I had to make up my mind to do something. Well, you don't have to put in a lot of time. If you get down there and start feeling the need to go on to bigger and better things, you can do it. But to drive the ambulance right now, it only takes about three weekends and go to meetings once a week, and you can be an ambulance driver. There's 2 paramedics and an EMT that are paid personnel, and sometimes they can't respond just because there's nobody to drive them. They've got to have a driver. They can't be in the back and driving at the same time. So first aid, CPR, driver's training, and there's one other thing, I forget what it was, but boom, you're a driver.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of people in this town who'd be more than willing to do that kind of stuff if we had a little bit of direction of what should be done or what. Yeah.
And we can help with that. We can help with that, but we need people coming on out and volunteering.
And people think that you have to be a young, strong guy.
Well, and that's what people are going to assume, you know. So tell people what you need, you know. I mean, instead of just saying that, oh, we need people to volunteer, you know, what do you have for people to do? You know, I guarantee you're going to find a lot of people here who are willing to do stuff.
Well, I sure hope so. I hope guys like you can help us find them. I mean, pass the word around, and you know, say, well, the excuse of being a woman don't make it anymore.
Well, right.
You know, women can do as much as us guys can out there on that ambulance. I mean, I can't pick people up. Hey, the gurney, it comes up and down.
Right.
You know, no excuse
like
anymore, ladies.
It's the newsletter where, you know, there's minimal stuff that I see for that kind of thing. You know, it's you know, maybe put something in there. I'm just you know, spitballing here, but you know, I guarantee there's a lot of people who would be willing to do that kind of stuff if we knew what to do.
Well,
we've been working at
it. Let's get. How do we get the word to get people to see Jessica? Any ideas? Are you thinking about going?
Me?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm always willing to help. Yeah. But what do you need? You know, do you need drivers? Do you need, you know? So maybe put something in the newsletter or what you need instead of, you know. It's easy to say, oh, you know, we need people to help for this and that, but like you were just saying, it can be a daunting thing. Like, oh, I'm not a firefighter. Like, am I going to be a volunteer? You know, what do I need to do? So.
Come on out and visit with Jessica. That's where it's at.
When she had an idea of when she'd be down there, what days and times and stuff. But she's usually there when she's there till 7 o'clock at night.
Right.
So, you know, it's not like you can't go after work and see her.
Absolutely. But then you're asking people to take it upon themselves when I'm saying maybe tell people what you want instead of making them, because I'm saying I don't know what you want to do. You say you want drivers, this and that. I haven't seen that in the newsletters or anything. You know, you're saying go talk to Jessica, okay, and that's fine. But
you want to know what to expect before you get there.
Well, not only that, but for people to be able to know maybe if there's something they can fit in. If that's something that they can do during their week. You know, take off of work for this, or if they have extra hours here. You know.
Okay, what's your name?
Matthew.
I'm Carl. I'll be
talking. I'm working willing to help too, but I'm not a firefighter. So that's a, you know, it's you know, when I think of volunteer firefighter, that scares me almost. You know, like I don't know. You know.
The fire department, ambulance department, same thing. They'll train you whatever you want to be. You can start off what I would do, I'd start off little.
But that's, well, that's the thing too. I don't think, I don't think anybody wants to get too heavily involved. Everybody wants to pitch in. So what can people do to pitch in instead of just?
I'd go for a driver first.
Yeah.
And then you get in there, and then you can see, do I want to just remain this little driver? Or, man, with me, it's,
You're not a little driver.
I decide, well, I'd be an EMT one.
Well, yeah, and I
way up,
appreciate everything those people do, but I'll tell you what, I'm not going to be an EMT, or I'm not going to be a firefighter.
That's what I thought.
I'll tell you that right now.
But get in there and see what you want to be. Talk to Jessica, and if you want, I'll go with you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the other people in the town, there's a lot of people here that can do stuff. But.
Well, see,
for the record.
How do we find them?
yeah.
Well, it's not by saying just go talk to Jessica if you want to do something.
Well, okay.
Figure out what we need, and then act accordingly.
Put it in the paper. Huh? What do you
We're
think?
expanding our presence on social media, so we're trying to do things to touch people and to get the word out to people. So, and it's tough.
And that's good, and that's
not
great.
easy.
It's a great idea, but I'll tell you, just off the bat, it's a
Let's put it everywhere.
yeah. But it is a scary thing, most people off the street aren't gonna be like, oh, I'm gonna go join and be a firefighter, people gotta, but people gotta be able to work up to it, I guess, or even just have other things that people, not everybody's gonna want to be a driver for EMS or, run around and try to put out fires and stuff, but I'm sure there's a whole lot of other stuff that goes into it besides just those two things, so.
All right, that's the end of mine. Room for adjournment?
I have another matter.
Another matter, okay.
This is something that has been bugging me, really disturbing me a lot ever since I've been on council. But I've gotten some new information that makes me need to bring it up on public record. So the mayor has always been pretty clear about the fact that he doesn't use city email. And I've recently discovered that he's been conducting city business through his wife's personal email account. To me, this is not just, a blatant nose thumb to transparency and ethics, but Brenda's not the elected official, and using her personal email account, there's absolutely zero oversight on what's being deleted. I talked to the legal advisors at the League of Oregon Cities, and they told me there's nothing we can do legally to compel officials to act ethically in this situation. But I really feel it's important for this to be on the record and for our citizens to know that our mayor refuses to use appropriate communication channels.
Well, I would just say to that, I don't pack a cell phone because I never hear the thing ring anyway, so. And as far as computer, I'm not a computer guy. I'm a dinosaur from that end of it. What we've found at our house, and every time that the cities come over to try to get it going, my email system, the city's email system hasn't been compatible with an Apple computer. I got an Apple computer, and every time they've come over to try to get where the email will come to me, it doesn't make it to me. So where I've gone to, it's there. They can send them, but I'm not getting it. So basically, what I've told people is, if you want to get a hold of me, there's my wife's email. It'll come to me through her email. So she says, Tom, you got some emails? I look at the emails. She shows me where they're at. So that's how I manage it. I haven't been able to get the server or whatever device I have in my house that connects to my email to be able to work for me. I'm not computer on top of that, and nobody else has been able to get it connected for me well enough. So every time we do it, it doesn't come in, but it does come in on her, so that's what I've gone with. But, it's not her conducting the business.
So-
I don't think anything's deleted.
But it's
I'm not
going
aware
through
of us
her
any deleted.
email.
What's
She
that?
is not the elected official, and city business is going through her email.
Well, I don't know enough about what you're talking about on that to know one way or the other.
It's an
But I do
inappropriate
know-
communications channel.
but I do know
Our
they're saying-
citizens don't have any way to get a hold of you
I
on
do know
email
the
because
state
it
isn't saying
doesn't
that
have your
there's an
wife's
issue with it.
address on the
And there must not be
website.
an issue. But I
How
wanted
do
to have.
you know? You don't. How do you know there's not an issue with it? I know plenty of people who have
Well,
complained
I've
about
been-
not being able to contact.
I've been
you
doing
on
this for
email.
6 years, and in my opinion, and you've heard from council here too, that everything's been moving through well, and I haven't heard of any issues over this. Now, 6 years later,
Well, that's
6 years
that's
later,
because
6
I
years later,
just found
now
out
I-
that you were using
now-
your wife's email
now-
instead of just ignoring it altogether.
well, it's not a plan of mine.
Well, something needs to be fixed because that is an
Okay,
inappropriate
that's what-
communications channel.
And we'll figure out how to get that fixed.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so that's taken care of then.
Can I
We're
say-
open for adjournment. Okay. So we got a motion
I
here for
move to
adjournment?
adjourn this meeting.
Second.
Been moved and second to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Whoa.
Thank you.
Hey, Gordon. Veterans Day observed the 12th. Veterans Day is elected.
That's correct, and it's what it says in my